got a book somewhere, but there's quite a lot of the books are outside, which you can purchase afterwards if you wish to. But look, thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here. And myself and two other people have been writing a few books about a few things for a few years. Ray Former, who was a fantastic publisher, he's done lots of publishing, and my friend Patricia Negus, who's a fabulous artist, have been involved with me. First of all with books on the Cape track, and which I've been very involved with, but then also with one or two Wildflower books, and Pat also put together a lovely fungi book as well. Her artwork is magnificent. We've got some of those books outside just for you to look at, and they are all available from the Wildflower Society on their list of publications. They're all still available if anybody is after those at other times. I've just got our latest book, which is actually now a few years old, but still going strong. And the Wildflower books that we've done before have been very much based on the western part of the Capes, I should say. Being from Margaret River, it's the Capes area that's my forte, where I've really got to know the plants and wildflowers fairly well. I was involved with the regional herbarium project in the early 2000s, collecting for the WA Herbarium. Had a lot of help from Mike Hislop, the wonderful professional there, who was involved with that project with the identifications. Learned a huge amount from him. I have learned a huge amount from a lot of friends and colleagues that I've been involved with. Yeah, the Capes area is it's actually one of the biodiversity hotspots. I think we all know that we're in part of the Southwest Australian international hotspot, but we're also one of about 15, 16 national hotspots, and that's in the Capes area, that's in Australia. And yeah, there is a fantastic diversity. We're sort of at the bottom of the Swan Coastal Plain area. We've got the Darling Range and the Southern Jarrah forests. We've got the Karri forests and the Southern Swamplands, which sort of get to their western limit. And of course, just on the northern borders towards Busselton and Bunbury, you've got the Witcher Range, which is a particularly special area for plants. And the Margaret River, which is what my book's about, flows through only about 60 kilometres. It starts halfway between Margaret River and Nannup, up on the Blackwood Plateau, which is not a very high plateau, but it's just a gently undulating area. It's got the Witcher Range on the north side, and it's got the Blackwood River and the tributaries going down into that on the south side. It's got Nannup and then the Darling Range, the Darling Scarp on the east, and the Lure Naturalist Ridge on the coastal side. So all in all, there is a fantastic diversity of plants in that area. You've also got things like the rainfall is much heavier on the coast than further inland, so there's a gradation there. You've got different rock types, different soil types, and different just habitats and little micro niches of depending on topography and all sorts of things. So just lots of fantastic places to go and explore. And while I was pretty familiar with the plants on the western half of the Capes area, it's only been recently where I've explored and got to know more about the inland plants. And the Upper Margaret River is particularly rich in, it's got in different flora, especially the wetland flora, the rushes and sedges and other wetland plants. Yeah, so a friend and I were tasked actually by Andrew Webb, our fabulous botanist in DBCA, based in Bunbury, and there were one or two plants that he was particularly interested in because they're not very well known, and said to Jenny and me, look, if you get a chance, if you go out and just have a wander around, just have a potter around and see what you can find, see if you can get some more populations of these particular plants. Right, okay, that was a really good excuse. And this was a few years ago, but just over 2 or 3 springs we went fossicking and hopefully helped him a little bit. But in the meantime, just got to know a lot more of the plants of the upland area. So we're going to start near the coast, but work our way inland and up to the more interesting areas. So I'll just be a bit quick about the ones near the coast. But first of all, the Margaret River starts, as I said, it's about 60 kilometres long, but of course it's a lot more with all the tributaries, well over 100 kilometres of river. And they start around Sue's Road here, halfway between Margaret River and Nannup, with the little feeder streams going in. In the winter, with water in, they pretty much dry up, a lot of them in the summer, but they gradually coalesce into sort of 2 fairly parallel streams going down, and then sort of south of Bustleton, rapids intersections, rapids crossing on a road which you wouldn't know unless you know the area down there, but they cross there, and then the river does a bit of a kink. It does about 6 kilometres going north-south instead of east-west, which is strange, and nobody's quite worked out why. Possibly, well, probably because of underlying fault lines and things, but because the Blackwood Plateau is actually, it's an area where over the millions of years the sediments have built up from what was the Darling Range Mountains, as they were once, and the Lewin Naturalist Ridge, which were much higher and bigger, and formed in the middle. It's all sort of fairly flat now, and you can't see a lot of what was underneath. But anyway, one way or another, you get these beautiful pools, Canebraid Pool, Long Pool, and there's just a little group of them, and all summer they have water. They are full all through summer. And that's because it's not just the rainfall that fills these, it's the underground aquifers. They're fed by underground water, which to date has kept them full through summer. We really hope that this is going to continue, but with drying climate, it's a bit of a hard one. And when you hear about water being taken, or the government wanting to take water from aquifers that are underground, this is a real no-no, because if we lose our underground water, we're going to be in real trouble in the future. Once you get out to the coast, the water is brackish. It's quite a wide river, just a couple of kilometres before the ocean. And again, then it's interesting because the levels go up and down. There's a sandbar through summer. At the moment, there's a big sandbar across at the mouth, and the water fills up behind, and it's quite deep at the moment. Come winter, when the first rains and the storms come across, the rains and the water starts to come through, and the sandbar breaks, and it sometimes breaks and then builds up again and breaks, and so the water level goes up and down quite a bit before it stabilises in June, July, and through the winter it gradually builds up again until the winter rains cease, and then the sandbar builds up again, and the water level goes down. So it's going down and up quite a lot. But some beautiful plants around the edge of the river. The swamp bark Melaleuca raphiophila. Balmia as it used to be, it's now Macarena, I think. All the little sedges there. That's a real common one. There are several others up the river, but just beautiful. Masses of different plants at the coast, which I'm not really going to talk about too much because there's too many lovely ones further up. But this is gorgeous. It's called Cape Lewin wattle, common name. It's not a wattle, but it's very, very close. It's called Parasorianthes lacantha, which I have remembered today. But it's just a beautiful plant. It's very much a pioneer. It grows quickly after fire. You get a lot of them after fire. They grow tall and spindly, and they often then fall over and you don't see them again. Some people think they're weeds because they look a little bit like the leaves or phyllodes look a little bit like the black wattles from the eastern states, which are a weedy one, but they're not. And some of them survive, and in places there are some really old ones actually, which become quite sturdy. Juncus kraussii, a rush that's common on the coast and a little bit inland, but often you just see them looking rather dowdy with the old flowers, which tend to persist on the plants all year round, but caught this one with new flowers on, and they're very pretty, really pink, which is lovely. So as you go up the river, on the coast again as well, lots of granite outcrops in the lower Margaret, up towards town and a bit further beyond town. And granite outcrops are always just a botanist's delight because there are just masses of really interesting plants that grow on granite. We have our own special Kunzia ciliata, which is only found on the Capes, the Northern Capes area actually, to about Margaret. Amazing. It's a very common one. On the coast, it's wind pruned down to a very low shrub. In town, on the granite outcrops in and near town, it grows to quite a tall shrub. So it looks quite different. It's usually pink, but sometimes it's white. And yeah, and then this is another one which is much commoner. It's got a much wider spread. It's a dodonea. It's a hot bush. It doesn't look like hot bushes, no. But it has got the little wings. And this is Ceratocarpa, which is one that grows on granite. We've also got one called Dodonea aptera, which grows on the limestone, and that's a nice easy way when you see them to see what rock types you're on. In the background there, the white one there is Hakea trifocata, a very smelly one, and again, when you smell that, you know that you're near granite outcrops. And there's a little bit of the orange-yellow one, which I'll see a better one in just a minute. That's just a little, one of the many, it used to be a leucopogon, it's now Stiphelia, which half of them are. This is pendula, and Stiphelia pendula, and it flowers in winter, which is nice, not so many flowers coming in winter. It's got little round fruit. There's another one which is very, very similar, which we found when we were doing the regional herbarium, which was, for a long time, was just leucopogon spurt Margaret River. And it's now finally got a name I saw the other day, which is nice. It's Stiphelia no, not obovatus. Excuse me. Oh, I haven't got it here.
Opponent?
Bosa. Oh gosh, I've got it. I'll come back to it. I'll remember. I lose names all the time. That's just getting old. Sorry. Rock fern, Chilanthus, Ostrotenuifolia. Thank you. Fabulous thing, growing on the mosses on the rock, on the granite rocks, and it's an interesting one because it's a resurrection plant. It's one of those ones that dies off in summer. We think it has, and then come the first rains, up it comes again, bright, and well, it's there all the time, but the leaves green up again, and it goes away again.
How big are they in that picture?
In that picture, they'd be about yay big.
Okay.
They're little, but
Okay.
and they don't tend to grow much bigger. The ones that I've seen, but they might. But they're the only Chileanthes that we've got. I think there are other rock ferns in different places, but they're different sorts. The yellow, orange ones behind are a Dilwinia. They're a pea flower. And again, Dilwinia laxiflora. It used to be a perflora, and it's finally got a name. They are another indicator of granite rocks in September. Masses of orange, yellow Dilwinia marks the granite. But the moss fern, the moss swords are wonderful on the granite because they provide moisture for lots of tiny little things. And this is really one of my favourites. This is actually not a picture that's not in the book because I knew they were there. They're quite common, but I hadn't found one with a flower on it. And then I was looking through the other day, and lo and behold, I found one with a flower. This is, all about sort of knowing what you've actually got, what you've taken photographs of a few years ago. But it's a fascinating one because, as you probably know, the Drosseras are carnivorous, and they have sticky glandular hairs which trap the insects. This one actually has two sorts of hairs. It's got the ones in the middle which are sticky and trap the insect. But first of all, if an insect lands on one of those longer outside hairs, it gets flicked over into the middle, which I think is fascinating. I've never seen. I'm sure wonderful photographers have taken photos, but I've never seen it. So it's just amazing. Another carnivorous group of plants, the utricularias, the bladderworts, tiny little bladders in the soil pockets underneath the soil, in the spaces, and water-filled, and tiny little insects will just swim into there, and boom, they're trapped in the middle and eaten, digested. And I had to put in an orchid. I really love orchids. So this is the lemon-scented orchid, Thelomitra antenifera. And just a lot of the orchids rely on deception to lure pollinators in. This one has those two little browny, reddy brown ears on the column, which look like anthers that are full of pollen, but of course they're not. And so the poor old insect doesn't get a reward, but pollinates the flower, goes on to the next and does the same thing. Okay, we come to the carry forest. We've got some lovely carry up the Margaret River, just in the lower reaches, and also in quite a few of the other small streams, going quite a way up to almost to Yallingup actually. And in fact there's a patch of carry that grows right up on top of the hill, which I know well because friends have got a block up there. And that's about as far north as carry goes. And our carry is actually an outlier. It's the same as the carries down in the big carries down in Pemberton and all around the south coast, but has been isolated for quite a while. But this, I put this one in just because you can see a big stump there that was milled, obviously. It was logged a long time ago, and they did grow quite a lot bigger than the ones that are there now. We've got some nice ones, but probably not as big as that. Couple in the carry forest that are rather lovely. This is a wattle. This is Acacia europhylla with the net-veined wattle with the beautiful patterns on the phyllodes. And the carry dampera, which is another fabulous one, and you get great clumps of that all over. And then to the water's edge plants, lots of sedges and rushes and Special plants that love the edge of the Margaret River and its tributaries. Here we've got I've got the little thing, haven't I? So Lepidosperma. Can I do it? Yes, I can sort of do it. Anyway, the big sedge in the middle, Lepidosperma effusum. Lepidosperma, there are a lot. When I was sort of looking at plants a long time ago, there were about 40. I think now there's about 140. But
they're just the named ones.
Yeah, exactly. We've got quite a lot of different ones there. And there's also some Tremalium, there's soapbush, Carrie hazel, with the yellowish flowers there. Hakea linearis, we've got quite a few hakeas, which are mainly all white flowers. This one loves the water. This is an interesting one, Gastrolobium formosum. It's gone through a few names. Jansonia it was at one stage. And there's quite a nice patch of it along the river. It's very hard to see the flowers sometimes because it's enclosed in those big bracts around the edge. And sometimes it looks just a rather browny, fluffy thing, but when the flowers do come out, they're really beautiful. Grevillea manglesiioides we haven't got many grevilleas. We've got a lot of hakeas, but not many grevilleas in the caves area. But this one is a rather pretty one when you look at it closely. You have to look at it fairly closely. A lot in the upper Margaret, not so much near the town, but there are some patches, it's there.
Did you say it's Grevillea manglesiana?
Yeah, manglesiioides.
That's why I think it's Anagasanthes manglesii, because it looks like a kangaroo paw.
All right.
The same colour,
the red and the green, well, the red and the yellow-green, absolutely. Thank you, Eddie.
Wow.
This one is a real water lover. And usually the leaves are submerged. It's a Liparanthophyllum, Lasiospermum, probably. Andrew wasn't quite sure about that one, but was pretty sure. They used to be Galacea. There are some lovely yellow ones that look almost like buttercups. There are white ones. And they've now been changed to Liparophyllum and Ornduffia. And don't ask me what the difference is.
The colour?
No.
No, it's not?
No, it's
not
the colour. But that's lovely. And you get it all up the Margaret and in other water bodies as well. Looking really beautiful when it's flowering. Onto the Jarrah forest, which we've got Jarrah right from the coast right the way up, obviously to the headwaters of the Margaret and beyond for many, many miles, many kilometres I should say here. This is just a mixture. The Jarrah forest has probably much more of a mixture of plants. A lot of them grow in the lower reaches and the upper reaches, although we'll see there's quite a few that are found more in the upper reaches of the catchment. This is a nice bit of Jarrah. You can see it's Jarrah, but generally the forest is a mix of Jarrah and Marri. And we've got, what have we got? Hovia elliptica. And we've got Hybertia hypericoides, the little yellow one. Tetrathecus epigira. And just a little bit of red Corozema rhombium, but a lovely mixture. This is another of our grevilleas. I think we've got 5. And this is one that people always comment on, and it's quite common, and it's just gorgeous. But the flowers tend to stand up and look very obvious. Gorgeous. This is Adenanthus. Now, the interesting thing about this is you've got Adenanthus barbager, which you've got a lot of around Perth and comes right down to our area. And then you've got Adenanthus spur, which arrange. It looks very similar. One has hairy leaves, one has glaucous smooth leaves. I think there's a slight difference in the width of them. Now, which one that is, I'm not sure. And sometimes the experts don't seem to be too sure. It's still sort of a little bit in the mix. But then there's also Adenanthus obovatus, which has much more oval, ovate leaves. So that likes wet areas. This is more in the drier jarry forest, but it's a common one and it's lovely. I just like that picture because it's a little hemigenia, one of the mint bushes, and you don't see much. We haven't got many mint bushes down south, but these ones you see just now and then and again in the lower reaches of the forest around town, but also in the upper Margaret, just in the Jarrah forest, and you just come across them every now and again, which is rather lovely. And this is one of the bloodroots, one of the hemidorums. And I was sort of interested to find this one. I thought, oh, that looks pretty much like Hemidorum laxum, which I'm used to, which is spreading and has the big branches. But it looked slightly different, and when I looked at it more closely, the way the flowers come is a bit different, and it's actually Hemidorum laxiflorum, believe it or not. Hemidorums bloodroots are interesting. Of course, indigenous people used to love the bulbs and roasted them like onions, and apparently they taste really, really good. They are also interesting because they've got a very tight flower, and it comes out later in the early summer usually, and they're pollinated by beetles, which are strong enough to open the flower up, which is quite fun. The other one that you see a lot of is spicatum, Hemidorum spicatum, which is a tall spike. And that's again on the river trail. These are all sort of found around, all these ones found around town. And this little one, which I just love, you probably know the purple flags and the yellow flags, Patagonias, but this is Patagonia babanioides. And it's a tiny little flower, but it's just gorgeous, and that big leaf that comes out, which is very distinctive. Okay, moving up to the upper Margaret, still Jarrah forest, Jarrah marri, and other things, of course, as well. We've got she oaks, casuarinas, we've got banksias, and a lot of other forest types. There's some she oak, I think, some casuarina, aloe casuarina, just in the middle of the path there. But this, I put this one in to show you the way the soils change from this gravelly soil up on the higher areas with a lot of laterite as well, and then down in the dips, you're going down towards the river crossing there, and it's white sand and probably a clay base, and completely different soils and completely different vegetation, which is really interesting. And much drier up here. The jarrahs don't grow so tall. One of my favourites, and a common one down there, but only growing, as a lot of our plants do. There are a lot that just have a fairly small range, and in the book I put a little hatch on the name, and there's a real lot, but these ones would be from Margaret River through to Nannup and up to Donnybrook, just a sort of bit of a triangle there. But it's a common plant, Dasypogon hookeri, pineapple bush, you'll know it as. Yeah, it's a common plant, but and now Dasypogonaceae, that family, now includes the king ears, which are like a Xanthorrhoea but taller and skinnier and just a bit different. And they also include one or two other things, like a little Calictasia, Star of Bethlehem, you have up here, and we have a different one down there, which is a beautiful star flower, purple with yellow anthers. I'm not going into all that, but it's just interesting the way things go. And then Xanthorrhoeas are in their own family, completely separate. Now, Another Kunzia rostrata, which is again in the more inland areas. It's a real witcher range plant, this, but like a lot of them do, come into the upper Margaret, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous when it's flowering. And we get it right across in Metricup, sort of north of Margaret River. The witcher range comes down behind Bunbury Bustleton and curves around, and you can't really see it then, but it extends actually right through north of Margaret River, sort of Quaramuk Metricup area, and through to Cape Naturalist almost, Meelup area. And you can tell because you get interesting plants that are witcher range plants that sort of come across into those areas. And I've seen Kunzia rostrata across in Metricup area. Sorry, the names will not be familiar to some of you, but this one is Brachiostalis, Gravelia, Brachiostalis, a lovely red. This one looks a bit browner than red. It's actually quite a bright red, and it's a priority plant. There's not so much of it, and it's got I think it's 3 or 4 subspecies at the moment, but it's also very, very similar to Gravelia bronwenii, named after our wonderful Bronwen Kiri. And there are slight differences in the structure, which I couldn't really explain. And Bronwen's not here, otherwise I'm sure she could give us a good talk about that one. But it's a beautiful plant, grows up in the Witcher and the headwaters of the Margaret. Well, not really the headwaters of the Margaret, but in the area, in the drier Jarrah areas usually, but very striking. This is one of my absolute favourites. This is a Pultonea, one of the pea flowers, one of the millions of pea flowers, but Pultonea radiata, we've got quite a few different Pultoneas, some of which are priority species. This one's not a priority, but again it's a, I don't think it's a priority at the moment, but it has a limited distribution, witcher range, Margaret River headwaters going through to Nannup and around. And it's just gorgeous, that colour combination of the pink and the orange yellow looks super when there's a whole lot of it flowering at once. And another one, Cynaphia witcherensis, witcher range area, which did have a P on it. It was a priority. I think they've taken that off now because they found there's actually so much of it, but again in a very, very limited range, just through to Nannup. On Moen Road, the beautiful helter-skelter road that goes from Margaret River through to Nannup, if any of you know it. There's a lot of it along there on the roadsides, which is really lovely. Looks super when it's out. And just because I love orchids, and this is a bit of a special one. This is actually one of the rare and endangered orchids. It looks very like King in his Carriage, which is much commoner, Drachea glyptodon. This is Drachea micrantha. It's smaller. It has a narrower labellum. The bit looks like an insect on the left, and then the column on the right has the sorry, I should do that with this not my finger. Has a little protuberance on the top, and that's the difference. And we tend to sort of go around every time we see King in his Carriage orchids. We're going around looking. Has it got the little lip on the top? No, but we will find some more. I've found it a couple of times. That's all. Jenny and I found one, and immediately passed that information on with the GPS to Andrew Webb, who was pleased to get that one. Going on more to the wetlands of the ridge now, you get different combination of plants in different wetlands, often depending, and I'm not by any means an expert in any of this, but the different lengths of time in the winter that areas are inundated with water, wetter or drier, whatever, how much they dry out in summer. So this one is with the beautiful red Beaufortius basa, which you'll see if you drive down through to Northcliffe, Walpole, in all the swamplands down there, masses and masses of that. And this also has one of the Taxandrias fragrans, which grows there. But a different sort of wetland entirely is the Melanostachya wetland, which is one of these sedges with the, it's got the little, we'll see it again, I can't find it, yes, with the little flowers there. It's quite common, I think, through the southern swamplands, but there's just sort of one or two of these areas in the Blackwood Plateau area where you get this type of swampland. It's apparently a bit of a worry. There's a lot of them are collapsing, these wetlands. They're drying out due to climate change. It would be a real pity because they're very special and have some special plants associated with them. We'll see one of them in a bit. Sorry, I must not be too long. That's just a couple of different types of wetland. There are others with different plant associations and different dominant plants. There's just such a variety. It's incredible. The more you look, the more you find. And I only really can touch the surface of it. I really don't know enough detail. I'm sure if you go to the conference, there'll be a lot more about different things. This is a lovely hakea, which is not white and is quite common in the wetter areas. It's hakea, it's all right, I'm losing it. Hakea ceratophylla, horned hakea, because it has these nice wide leaves with the sort of horns on them. It's a very pretty one. And this is another priority flora, another Pultonea pinifolia, which is a tall one with the pine-like leaves. And again, sort of a few populations of them, but not very many, not terribly well known. And it's a beautiful plant. And Baronia, tetragona, this one, because it's got the four-sided stems. And again, it's there's quite a bit of it in a few places, but only in a few places. It's a bit more widespread, but not very much at all. It's a gorgeous one. This one is a bit more common, but you don't see it very often because it's in the swamplands and usually a long way away from roads and things. But it's there's a lot more on the south coast, and it's called the Albany daisy. It's not a daisy at all. It's in the Myrtaceae family, but it's beautiful and varying from the white right through to quite a deep pink. And again, this is quite a common one, but I just love it with the little conical flowers. It's one of the Comospermas, one of the milkworts, Comosperma flava. And you can actually see a bit of that Melanostachya there, that sedge again. And this one, just another of the many Drosseras, Drossera myriantha, which can be sort of white going through to pink, and just has a very delicate stem, branches a lot, and sort of sticks up above the swamp vegetation sometimes, and just looks really beautiful. This one is really interesting. I think it's really interesting. It's it's actually a Leeuwenhoekia, one of the little styleworts which are related to the trigger plants, and the ones that you see a lot of are very tiny ones, but you get lots and lots and lots of them all over the floor in some parts. This one is now called Leeuwenhoekia aestiva, and I found that out when I read a landscape article last year, a year before, And apparently the people who were into Leeuwenhoekias were doing a lot of research. It used to be Leeuwenhoekia pricei, but they found that this particular one is just a bit different, and in fact it's probably more common than pricei, which is further north. And now this is called summer style wort, and you don't see a lot of it. I've only seen it a couple of times, but it's a really beautiful little thing. It's only small, it's only sort of that big, but it's a bit bigger than some of the other styles.
Much bigger.
And it's a really lovely thing, so I was quite thrilled to find that one actually. Now this one I have to tell you about, because this was one of the reasons why this book was written, because my friend and I were trying to do some work for Andrew Webber, our botanist, trying to find some more populations of this one. This is Stelidium hygrophilum, and it's a priority. They only knew one or two populations that were along one of these roads that goes down through the river area in the headwaters. And Andrew said, oh, if you're going looking around, can you please try and find a few more populations of this? Well, it's pretty difficult because it's one of the Junsim group. There's quite a few that look similar, that are leafless pretty much, or might just have a very, very narrow rush-like leaf. They only flower for a couple of weeks, the end of October, beginning of November, and they're right in the middle of some swampy lands, and they're not easy to find. But over about 3 springs, we've found it in several places now, and it's quite exciting to have done that. Yeah, they just sort of pop up, and you just see 1 or 2, or possibly up to about 10 in an area, and that's it. When we were, this was just an excuse to go out exploring, really, and it helped us to sort of just get to know the inland area a lot better. This is another of the beautiful sedgeland plants, and again, you don't often see it in flower. This is in November, in the middle of a particularly wet area. It's an Anarthria. Now, you may know Anarthria scabra, which is in sandplain country, actually. It tends to be in sort of fairly dry sandplain country, with quite a wide strappy leaf and separate male and female flowers. The male flowers are sort of fairly droopy yellow pollen heads, and then the females are either red or yellow, but quite a spike, stout spike. But as well as that one, there are a couple of others, Anarthria gracilis and Anarthria levis, which is this one, which are common, and there are 1 or 2 others, but they're in a little family all on their own. They used to be, I think they were sort of together with the southern rushes, the Restiads, the Restianaceae family, but they are in their own special family now, Anarthriaceae. And just because I hadn't put a Leptocarpus in, this is one of the Restiads. Velvet rush, you might know, in swampy areas is a big, tall Leptocarpus, whatever it is, I've forgotten. But this is a tiny, well, not a tiny one, but it's just a very small one, quite common up in the headwaters. But just a pretty little thing with the pinkish buds, and then they go quite fluffy and white at the end. So it's just a selection. I think we've got about 300 illustrations, 300 plants in the book. There's only sort of 40 or 45 plants there, which is probably too many. But thank you for looking at those. But just on a rather sadder note, the Margaret River itself is a relatively healthy river, as southwest rivers go. A lot of them are fairly saline now and are impacted by development and stuff. The Margaret River is actually fairly healthy. is luckily a lot of its catchment is in these wilder, more remote upland areas. But unfortunately, the four-wheel drives get in there. The people like to take pot shots at they'll put a tin up and do that. And there's a lot of rubbish left everywhere, and they do the tracks and things are often sort of in a pretty bad state. This was on Adelaide Road, which is one of the roads that runs north-south and across the river. That particular area has now been blocked off pretty well. It's hard to block off tracks in that area because people just drive around and manage to bash their way through the bush again. But at the moment, I haven't been there for a couple of years anyway, and I hope that that's recovering a bit now because it was just in a terrible state and pretty sad about that. But the Margaret River, just to finish off, some of the Margaret River catchment is looked after in the Wooditch National Park, which is all the bits of forest around town really, and it's a bit fragmented, but it is in a national park now. We've got the Lewin Naturalist Ridge National Park along the coast, Cape to Cape, but that's a very, very narrow national park, and of course has one of the biggest visitations in the state. And so although it's protected, it's pretty hard. The Canebrake area where those pools were at the start, they're in a conservation reserve, so they are sort of protected to some extent, but the whole of this upper Margaret area in the catchment is completely unprotected. It's just state forest, and because it's away from everything, everybody thinks, well, that's all right, it's fine, nothing happening to it. But of course you get this sort of thing, and it's a bit of a shame. But we hope that, I think there's been some moves to try and get some of this area at least into a reserve. And apart from anything else, apart from the intrinsic value of these areas, it's our water supply as well. And it needs much more protection than it has at the moment. So thank you.